A short 1901 report by a newly appointed American Bureau of Education superintendent provides some personal insights not just on the state of education in Batangas, but more importantly on Batangas culture at the time. The superintendent's name was M.A. Colton. At the time, it was deemed that one superintendent would suffice for the provinces of Batangas, Cavite, and Tayabas, presently called Quezon Province. Although the Philippine-American War was still raging in the period covered by the report, that is, from 1900 to 1901, the infantile American colonial government was as busy introducing the Yank way of life to the Filipinos, as its volunteer army was pursuing and subduing what, to the American point of view, were what they called the Filipino insurgents. That word insurgent, of course, was contentious and entirely from the American point of view. First of all, they came in totally like an uninvited house guest. Second, the Filipinos were really freedom fighters trying to gain independence for their own country. One obvious tool for this indoctrination of the Filipinos was education. In his 1989 book, author Stanley Karnow noted that it, meaning education, allowed the American colonial government to spread their cultural values, particularly the English language, to the Filipino people. The Commission on Education report was scathing of the previous Spanish colonial government's policy on education, noting that while higher institutions like colleges and universities had been in existence as early as the 17th century, there was nonetheless no logical policy for the opening of primary and secondary schools to feed these. Said the report, "The result of this policy has been that a few persons have stood out prominently as educated Filipinos, while the great masses of the people have either not been educated at all, or only up to a certain point, namely, the acquisition of the mechanical processes of reading and writing. The opening of these lower-level education schools, or what we now call elementary or high school, it goes without saying, had become a priority of the Americans even while the war had been ongoing. Districts of education had quickly been organized and superintendents appointed. Because of the dearth of schools at the time and the low population, it was but prudent to bundle the provinces of Batangas, Cavite, and Tayabas into one district under Colton. The Commission on Education report included short district reports from the different superintendents assigned around the Philippines. Each was likely given instructions to conduct an assessment of the assigned localities. Colton described his district as Tagalo, an alternative word to Tagalog, country. He wrote, "The division of Cavite, Tayabas, and Batangas is the Tagalo country. Batangas is the heart of it. Here in Batangas, the Tagalog language is uncorrupted, comparatively speaking, and old Tagalog customs still hold. Moreover, Colton described the economic and political system still in use in Batangas as feudal, in reference to the medieval land distribution and redistribution system in Europe, which created a system of nobility. The lands were then worked by peasants who were largely uneducated and under obligation to their feudal masters, the nobility. In Batangas, Colton observed, the role of the European feudal lords was played by the Principalia, the ruling and usually educated upper class in the pueblos of the Spanish Philippines. There was also a sort of caste system enforced that went along with the feudal system." He wrote, "Caste is still recognized and somewhat well-defined, although it shows some clear signs of breaking under certain influences of later years. In addition to unfavorable environment of long-standing, for example, contact with Cavite, Manila, etc. In the first class are those who do no manual labor, including their women who toil not, neither do they spin. The second consists of shopkeepers, etc. The third class is composed of the common workman and laborer and of the rabble. The gulf between these classes is not impassable. Wealth may bridge it. Courtship and marriage traditions in the province, Colton observed, were quite fixed. This is something regular readers of Batangas history, culture, and folklore will be familiar with, since the subject has been covered in previous articles. He was also of the opinion that the common hombre in Batangas was contented with his serfdom and lacked initiative, probably because of long years of not very hard servitude. Colton summed up the relationship between the common man in Batangas and the land-owning Principalia. His lord or principal, the landed proprietor, in return cares for him, for example, gives him floor space in which to put his petati. If he comes to town or is reconcentrated, and is his protector if he is prosecuted or arrested. In short, the principal thinks for him. He digs, votes, and fights loyally for his lord. Although the Tagalog spoken in Batangas was pure, Spanish continued to be the polite and official language, presumably among the learned. Spanish was also more widely spoken in the province than in Cavite. This, Colton conjectured, was probably because of the former wealth of the principals in the former. In conclusion, Colton gave a description of the concentration camps enforced in Batangas under the order of General J. Franklin Bell of the United States Army to prevent the civilian population from supplying the army of General Miguel Malvar during the Philippine-American War. He wrote, "At the beginning of the reconcentration, as many as 100 hombres would be housed by one lord in his own house. Now they have shacks. Owing to the conditions of sparse settlement of the barrios formerly, reconcentration is seen in model form at Tanauan, Batangas Province. Each barrio has its own square in the camp of Nipa shacks, and each square has its schoolhouse. There are about 2,000 children enrolled, which is, it seems to me, unparalleled in the history of the world. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back in time to the early 20th century in Batangas. We hope you found this glimpse into old Batangas as fascinating as we did. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next historical exploration. Let us know in the comments what you found most interesting about Mr. Colton's report. Until next time, stay curious.